Was I wrong for feeling like I was an afterthought, a forgotten piece of furniture in my own family, especially when they all walked away from my grandfather's funeral millionaires, and all I got was a measly plane ticket home? Tell me if you would have felt the same gut-wrenching betrayal, the same cold sting of being utterly dismissed, only for 6 words to completely shatter everything I thought I knew and spin my world on its axis. I swear, it still feels like a dream, a surreal nightmare from which I can't quite wake up, even though it all happened. It began, as most great tragedies do, with a phone call in the dead of night, the kind that instantly tells you your life is about to change, and not for the better. It was my Aunt Carol, her voice thick with forced solemnity, informing me that my grandfather, Arthur Sterling, had passed away peacefully in his sleep. Peaceful for him, perhaps, but for me, it was the start of a storm. Grandpa Arthur wasn't just any grandfather. He was the asterisk grandfather, the patriarch of the Sterling family, a man who built a veritable empire from nothing but sheer grit, an insatiable work ethic, and a sharp mind. He was a titan of industry, a self-made millionaire many times over, whose name was synonymous with success in our city. But more than that, he was my rock. My parents, well, they were always a bit distant, more concerned with their social climbing than with raising a child. Grandpa Arthur filled that void. He taught me how to fish, how to fix a leaky faucet, how to solve a Rubik's Cube, and most importantly, how to stand up for myself. He was the one who encouraged my artistic ambitions, buying me my first easel and set of paints, even when everyone else scoffed. He saw something in me that no one else bothered to look for. When I turned 18, I decided to leave our small town and pursue art school across the country. A decision met with lukewarm approval from my parents and outright derision from my uncles and aunts, who always saw me as the dreamy one, the one who wouldn't amount to anything substantial. Grandpa Arthur, though, he gave me a hug, slipped me an envelope full of cash, and told me, "Go make your mark, kiddo. Don't let anyone tell you you can't." Those words, that support, were worth more than any inheritance to me at the time. I kept in touch with him, calling him every Sunday, sharing my successes and failures, getting his blunt but always loving advice. My visits home were rare, mostly due to the cost and the increasingly awkward family dynamics. The Sterlings were a family obsessed with money, status, and appearances. My parents, my 2 uncles, and my 3 aunts, along with their numerous children, all orbited around Grandpa Arthur like planets around a sun, vying for his attention, his approval, and most transparently, his fortune. They were a flock of vultures, circling, waiting for the inevitable. I, on the other hand, was the distant comet, orbiting on the periphery, content with my art and my quiet life, far away from their petty squabbles. The funeral itself was a spectacle. It was held in the grandest church in the city, attended by all the movers and shakers, the people who wanted to be seen mourning the great Arthur Sterling. My family, dressed in designer black, put on a performance of grief that was almost Oscar-worthy. My Aunt Carol, ever the drama queen, dabbed at her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. My Uncle Robert, a man whose entire life was funded by Grandpa's generosity, gave a eulogy that sounded more like a business report than a heartfelt farewell. I sat in the back, a silent observer, truly mourning the loss of the only person who genuinely loved and understood me. The grief was a heavy cloak, suffocating me, but underneath it, a tiny ember of dread flickered. I knew what was coming next, the reading of the will. It was the elephant in the room, the unspoken tension that hummed beneath the polite condolences and forced smiles. 2 days after the funeral, everyone gathered at the Sterling estate. a sprawling mansion that now felt eerily silent without Grandpa's booming laughter. The family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, a stern man with spectacles perched on his nose, cleared his throat and began to read. The air was thick with anticipation, the rustle of silk and wool, the nervous coughs. He started with the minor bequests, charities, household staff, distant relatives. Then he got to the main beneficiaries, my Uncle Robert and his children, millions. My Aunt Carol and her children, millions. My parents, my other uncle and aunts, their children each name read out, followed by figures so astronomical they made my head spin. Estate after estate, property after property, stocks, bonds, art collections, the sterling legacy, meticulously divided among them. Each announcement was met with barely concealed smirks and nods of satisfaction from the recipients. I sat there, feeling smaller and smaller, a ghost at my own grandfather's financial feast. I knew I wasn't expecting much, not after years of being subtly sidelined. But still, a part of me, the naive part that still believed in fairy tales, hoped for something, a token of his love that transcended the material. A painting, a piece of jewelry, perhaps even a small sum to help with my struggling art career. Anything. So, that's the situation I was in, watching my family become instantly richer than their wildest dreams, and I had to make a choice about how I was going to react. Before I tell you what happened next, what I eventually received, and those 6 words that changed everything, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted them? Would you have just walked away? What would you have hoped for? The lawyer finished, his voice echoing in the sudden, expectant silence. He looked over his spectacles, scanning the room. My family members were already exchanging triumphant glances, their mission accomplished. Then Mr. Henderson looked directly at me. My heart gave a little flutter, a flicker of hope, and to his granddaughter, he began, "My client, Arthur Sterling, leaves." The silence stretched excruciating. Everyone leaned in, curious to see what the black sheep would get. My Aunt Carol even let out a little titter, quickly stifled. One plane ticket home. My blood ran cold. My ears were ringing. One plane ticket home, that was it. After all these years, after all the love and support he gave me, after all the promises, after all the wealth he amassed, I got a asterisk plane ticket asterisk. My family members exchanged knowing glances, some with thinly veiled pity, others with outright amusement. My Uncle Robert actually snorted. My parents looked away, pretending to be deeply engrossed in their programs. I felt a flush creep up my neck, hot with humiliation and a profound sense of betrayal. It wasn't about the money, it was about the message. It was a slap in the face, a public declaration that I was worth nothing, not even a fraction of what they all received. My grandfather, the man who loved me, had seemingly abandoned me in his final act. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the polished floor, the sound shattering the opulent silence. My vision blurred, tears stinging my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. "Thank you," I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper, but laced with a bitterness that I hoped cut through their smug satisfaction. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of that mansion, out of that family's suffocating embrace, without another word, without a backward glance. I booked the earliest flight I could, a red-eye from their city back to mine, back to the anonymity of my life, far from the gleaming towers of sterling wealth. On the plane, I cried, not just a few tears, but a gut-wrenching, soul-deep sob that shook my entire body. I felt utterly alone, abandoned by the one person who had ever truly believed in me. I felt foolish for having harbored any hope. The plane ticket, a symbol of dismissal, felt heavier than any gold. As the plane soared through the night, a flight attendant approached me, a kind-faced woman with warm eyes. "Excuse me," she said gently, "are you the granddaughter of Arthur Sterling?" I nodded, still sniffling, bracing myself for another dose of pity or perhaps an insensitive comment. She smiled softly. "He left this for you. He asked me to give it to you personally once the plane was in the air." She handed me a small, unassuming brown envelope. My brow furrowed. What could this be? A belated apology? A small, forgotten trinket? I tore it open, my fingers trembling. Inside, there wasn't money, no jewelry, no grand revelation. There was a single, folded piece of paper, a crisp $100 bill, and a small, silver key. And then I saw the handwriting. It was Grandpa's. My heart hammered against my ribs. It read, "Look under the loose floorboard, honey." 6 words. My breath hitched. 6 words? What did that mean? The $100 bill was enough for a taxi from the airport to my apartment. But the key and the note, they were a mystery. I clutched them tight, a sliver of hope rekindled in my desolate heart. When I got back to my tiny, cramped apartment, the first thing I did was search. Loose floorboard. My apartment was old, built in the 1920s, and there were plenty of creaky, imperfect spots. I got on my hands and knees, tapping, listening, searching every inch of the worn wooden floorboards. Finally, in the far corner of my bedroom, under an old rug, I found it. A floorboard that gave a little more than the others. With shaking hands, I inserted the silver key into a tiny, almost invisible keyhole on the side of the floorboard. It clicked. I pried the board up. My jaw dropped. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a small, ornate wooden box. It wasn't a jewelry box. It was too substantial for that. My fingers fumbled with the clasp. It opened with a soft click. And there, inside, sitting on a bed of old photographs, was another note, in Grandpa Arthur's unmistakable script. It read, "The Sterling Art Collection is yours," 6 words. 6 simple words that hit me like a physical blow. The Sterling Art Collection, not just asterisk and asterisk art collection, but asterisk the asterisk Sterling Art Collection. My grandfather had been a renowned collector of fine art, amassing a fortune in masterpieces over his lifetime. His collection was famous, legendary even in the art world. Paintings, sculptures, rare artifacts worth millions upon millions of dollars. He had been quietly collecting, buying pieces under various shell companies, away from the prying eyes of my money, hungry relatives, and then he would display them in a private, climate-controlled vault in his mansion, a vault that only he and his trusted curator, a man named Mr. Peterson, knew the true extent of. My family thought the most valuable pieces had been sold off years ago to fund other ventures, or that they were simply lost in the shuffle of his vast empire. But Grandpa, being the shrewd, brilliant man he was, had been building this secret legacy. The box also contained a detailed inventory, authenticated provenance documents, and a key, a second, larger, more intricately designed key to the private vault at his estate. And a letter, a long, heartfelt letter from Grandpa. In it, he explained everything. He knew his family. He knew their greed, their shallowness. He knew they would disregard me, his artist granddaughter, deeming me unworthy of his financial legacy. He had orchestrated the entire plane ticket home debacle as a test, a final act of defiance against his family's materialism, and a profound statement of faith in me. He wrote about how he watched me struggle, how he saw my passion, and how he admired my refusal to conform. He explained that the art collection was his true legacy, the one that represented beauty, creativity, and the human spirit, things he knew I valued above all else. He wanted me to have it, to curate it, to cherish it, and if I ever needed to sell parts of it to fund my dreams, my art, or simply to live a comfortable life, free from the financial worries that had plagued him in his early years. He wanted me to be truly independent, not beholden to anyone, especially not my vultures of a family. The final paragraph of his letter made me weep again, but this time they were tears of profound love and gratitude. He said, "I always knew you were the only one who truly understood me, my dear. The others only saw the money. You saw the man, and you saw the beauty in the world. This collection is for you, my artist. Go forth and make the world more beautiful." The next day, I called Mr. Peterson, the curator. He sounded relieved to hear from me. He had been entrusted with safeguarding the collection and had been waiting for my call, knowing Grandpa's plan. He confirmed everything. The collection was indeed mine, securely stored, and legally transferred into my name through a separate, discreet trust established years ago. My family, of course, found out eventually. Oh, the uproar! The sheer, unadulterated fury that erupted from them was a symphony of outrage. They hired lawyers, they threatened lawsuits, they screamed betrayal. But Grandpa, ever the strategic genius, had made everything watertight, ironclad. There was nothing they could do. The sterling art collection was mine, legally and unequivocally. I didn't gloat, though it was tempting. I didn't confront them. I simply lived my life, now with a newfound sense of freedom and purpose. I used some of the funds from strategically selling a few pieces to establish my own art gallery, a place where emerging artists could showcase their work without the pressures of the commercial art world. I continued my own art, now with a peace of mind I'd never known. My family still talks about it, I'm sure. They still seethe with resentment, but I don't care. Grandpa Arthur, in his final, magnificent act, showed me what true love and belief looked like, and he gave me the tools to live a life that honored his memory. He didn't just give me millions. He gave me my future, my independence, and a profound understanding of what truly matters. So, yes, they got their millions, and I got one plane ticket. But those 6 words, "The sterling art collection is yours," they changed everything. They gave me a legacy far richer than mere currency. They gave me purpose. Like this video, if you were on my side and think Grandpa Arthur was a genius. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.